All right, what up, though? So, welcome back. Okay, so today I want to talk to you guys about a conversation I was having recently with a good friend of mine, another entrepreneur. And, I got the grapes with me, so pardon, the eating healthy. But we were talking about getting to our destination with the least path of resistance. And like anything, it got me thinking about that phrase, least path of resistance or the path with least resistance, right? And so I did some deep dive in Chat GPT and all that stuff and, trying to do my little research. And because I've heard it said before, I've used it before. I think in that manner, and logistics of business planning, of relationships, of, trying to improve my knowledge base. You try to take the path with least resistance. However, there's a catch 22 to trying to approach anything in that manner, especially if we haven't done the prerequisite work of going through the necessary resistance to obtain the wisdom, the knowledge, the strength, the fortitude to be able to handle the path and the journey that's going to require this skill set that you can only obtain by going through certain levels of resistance challenge along the way. So there's not really a level of avoidance. And so what got me to thinking is because when he said you got to take this in context too, right? When he said it to me, it was almost as if he was trying, to avoid certain dynamics within our particular conversation, what he was trying to achieve. And most people and most of us think that way too. It's like, okay, how can I avoid conflict, obstacles, pitfalls, mistakes, seemingly, right? And like anything else, when we really break it down, we have to understand there's levels and there's processes to every phase of development, every phase of growth, and every phase of achievement. So taking the path with least resistance can be done once you have taken the path of resistance within its proper context. The original statement and quote actually came from a number of different things. It got put into academia, tech, um, uh, different business niches and career sets from archaic and old things like war planning, strategizing, political strategies, trying to make sure in war generals' cases, they wanted to obviously, conquer the city. So how could they get to the conquering of one's, city by they had to send out surveillance and they had to figure out what was the path to travel with least resistance, not so much for the enemy sake. But back in the day, we didn't live that long. We didn't have, cars and trucks and planes. We had caravans and people had to walk. So what you wanted was a path of least resistance of wearing down and possibly killing your army or your troops, right? So it was a strategy that had to be deployed. But what they had to realize though, when they did that, again, it took a path of resistance to figure out sending out for 6 months to a year and then hoping they came back again, scouters to see what land and what they had to traverse in order to be able to find that clear brush, that clear path to be able to attack and have most of their forces intact, right? So it's kind of a catch 22. This is where the quagmire comes in, right? The dichotomy, if you will. In order to take the path of least resistance, you have to be willing to go through the path of resistance. So there's no way around it. In this modern time, older, I say we, because I'm 44. So, we tend to indict the youth and say everybody wants it like that. They want it like yesterday, right? They don't want to put in the work, right? And I try to stay away from those conversations because every generation is different, right? And I can't blame the youth because again, if my generation, the one preceded me, were the ones who instituted and put in place this mentality of path of least resistance, Well, what is the offspring going to think? They're going to think, well, I should be able to do this without having to go through the struggle to obtain and acquire the proper knowledge, resilience, and everything that I talked about, the fortitude, in order to achieve the money or achieve the relationship or achieve whatever it is that they're going for. And I'm here to tell you, you have to understand the path of least resistance requires the building and the forging of oneself by going through the obstacles and the resistance to get to the path that's a clear brush. We are living in modern times, modern cities, environments, and we forget, we have this nostalgic idea of what the past was, right? It was better times then. Bullshit. Okay. When I look at, I have a place in Atlanta, right? And grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, major cities, right? 100 years ago, the areas that I was living in were filled with trees, bushes, right? Fields. Over time, someone had to come and plow down those trees, dig up the roots, lay piping for sewage. That all required, they saw the vision, but they had to take the path of resistance in order to build a clean path for me to now live in a city where I don't even necessarily know how many trees they had to cut down and how long it took them to put the sewage in, right? People, thousands and hundreds of thousands of people had to work those jobs to get that done. You see what I'm saying? In order for me to live a path of least resistance. I'm saying all this to say, don't play yourself in trying to expedite the process in a way where you skip going through the process that you need to go through in order to be what you need to be to handle what you're asking for. It's the same thing in a romantic relationship. Everybody wants to say, I want to be in love. I want to be in love. And as soon as the problem hits, it's easy for us to say, okay, I'm done. It's over. I quit. I've been at fault of this. All of us have at some point. But what you're looking for when you find that person you love, you're looking for someone who's willing to stay in the throes of the discomfort, in the fear, in the heartache of I yelled at you, you yelled at me, or I didn't see what you were trying to show me, and I took it wrong. And we want someone to stay in that in order to get to the bliss of, oh, I love you, let's kiss, let's hug. You have to be willing to go through that in order for those moments of let's kiss, let's hug to really have that vibrancy, that true palatable yearning and love and passion that you're looking for. It's like I heard one of my mentors say before. He said, when it came down to playing football on the field, you could walk on the field, a football field before the game, and you could literally run into the end zone and say you scored a touchdown. But did you get 7 points on the board? No, because first off, the clock wasn't running. You didn't have to go through the defensive line and then you have refs there to say, hey, you did the work of going 100 yards or 60 yards fighting against the opposition to get to this place of, the path of I'm a champion, right? So you have to be able to put yourself and understand you have to go through the struggle to get to the other side, to be able to appreciate what it is to be the path of least resistance. It goes back to what I said. If you watch the video I was talking about on the beach the other day, you have to be able to put yourself understanding in order to live a full life, you have to really fucking live. you know, it's to say I want an easy life, or the term nowadays that a lot of young women use, and it's matriculating over into men, and how people think you're making so much passive money on social media, this, that, and the other. You want the soft life. In order for you to be able to have the soft life, you have to be able to go through the hard times and also grow. More importantly, grow through the hard times. This is what it takes to get to that path of least resistance. Because what the resistance is, when you really break down even more on a more esoteric thought process, what the actual resistance is you against the process. So if you would understand, by dialing back your angst, your stress, your frustration about the process, That's you lessening the resistance of what the process is demanding of you and what's required of you to get what you quote unquote, want to obtain in business, economics, love life, friendships. You are the actual resistance. So the path of least resistance on another level of thinking about it beyond just the actual strategic, Harvard breakdown, Stanford, NYU breakdown. It's you lessening your resistance against what the process is requiring of you in order to be and then sustain at an excellent level what it is you're asking to achieve or to acquire, tangibly manifest in the real time of you being here as the human that you are. Okay. So I just want to touch on that and give a different paradigm, a different perspective to what it means to want to take the path of least resistance. I just want to reiterate, you have to go through the resistance. You have to grow through the resistance in order to get to a level, because not even at the level of what you think is going to be tranquility or peace, there's going to be what they say at new levels, new devils, right? There's going to be challenges at that level. I remember me and my lady were talking a few weeks ago and she made mention, she was like, she couldn't wait to get older because that's, just going to be such a blissful time when there's nothing really to do. The demands of work, making money, all that stuff, because you're in your late 80s, early 90s. If you got kids or whatever, or family members that, quote unquote, would take care of you, or you've done well with your money, you have, a team, a staff around you that can take care of you, nurses, in-home nursing, all that stuff. So her premise is not wrong. But I said to her then, I was like, well, what makes you think that just because you're 80 and 90, that everything is blissful? You know what I'm saying? Because last time I checked, talking to 80, 90-year-olds, body aches, you know what I'm saying? They got to keep going to medical, to check up on, teeth rotting or whatever it might be, or if they have pre-existing conditions of some kind of, or, because of lack of, old school, lack of, taking care of one's health properly, may have diabetes, high blood pressure, so they overweight, dealing with visceral fat around their organs, so it's a lot of things that, well, on the outside, we say, oh, that's just Big Mama, or that's my grandmama, or, they're so cute. And on a daily basis, they like, man, I can't wait to get out of here because I'm like, I'm struggling. My point is, don't always look to the far off thing as if by going the path of least resistance that you will obtain a certain level of peace and tranquility once you're there, if you're able to get there. Because the reality is, if you don't go through the resistance, you won't be able to sustain or understand how to deal with that level of whatever that seemingly success or peace or tranquility is, because it's going to come with its own level of stressors or problems or puzzles that can derail you at that level. But the goal is to, as I said, to be on a more esoteric thought level on your daily approach by instituting our 5 principles that we talk about. You can attack this understanding. The path of least resistance is boiling down to you understanding your lessening of the stress and fight against what you believe is the difficulties in your life, but treating them as what your higher power is trying to show you as. These are the sharpening tools necessary to build you and shape you and forge you in a way to be able to handle what it is that you are asking, demanding God, Allah, whoever, Buddha, to bring about for you. It's the same reason why even in all these spiritual doctrines, the being the one that we pray to always had to have their own level of, circumstances that they had to, the hero's arc or the hero's journey, right? Go on, if you will. And of course, because we want to give these deities their omnipotence of being God and being the one to be the creator, of course, we say that they don't go through anything, right? But why do they not go through anything? Because they're at peace with the understanding of what they created, which is there's night, there's day, there's good, there's evil, there's life, there's death. In all of these things, you have to grow through each one of these cyclical phases, be the best of what you can be in it, flow through it, grow through it, and then allow it to be what it's going to be with the least amount of your human intellectual feeling of you can control what you can't control, right? So this is if you let go of the control and allow for the path to be the path, then it becomes the path of least resistance. Again, the esoteric, the higher level of thought. This is why we bring this to you. This is what I was convening with my, in my third step when I was convening, after our conversation the other day with with my friend about this. This is what I gathered from it. The conversation is that this is how one is able to seemingly present themselves at the level of whatever their level is to the outside eye looking in, present themselves in a way of this is just another one of those. I have it under control. um, Always seeming to be stress free. All these terms we use is because we do take the path of least resistance because I'm not resisting the path that I know I have to take that is unique and different and is only meant for me. And I can't put it off on anyone else. I can only take responsibility along the path when I have done something or not implemented or instituted something that should have worked a certain way in order for me to have the outcome that was desirable at that moment. But understanding the outcome that was delivered was the one that was necessary in order for me to again learn on this path and then make the proper pivot, what I talked about in the other one, or giving myself the proper grace in order to be able to learn from that moment and then grow from that moment, not dictating that upon the external um, resources or sources or situations that may have been the afflictor or been afflicted by what I did or did not do, right? It's based off of me learning from it and then taking the proper action going forward from there. Again, that is now becoming what we desire, which is the path of least resistance. Okay. I hope this makes sense. Like I said, you know how I get into my mind and I get to thinking about shit, and eat my grapes. But I hope you guys are taking these 5 principles. I hope you're doing them. I hope you're getting your deep rest. I hope you're doing your gratitude. I definitely hope you're doing your deep stillness because that part is I mean, next to none, the most important pivotal part of the 5 steps that I talk about in the principles. And then I really hope again that you're taking care of step 4, the 2-parter physical activity, and then making sure your nutrition is on point, and then making sure your personal workflow is in order. If you don't know about those, go check out the other videos. Again, leave comments. Please, let's talk. I want to converse with you. I want you to listen to what I had to say, and if you don't agree, let's agree to disagree, and then or let's have a good conversation about why what I said doesn't make sense. Because I'm not saying I'm right all the time. I'm not. I'm just trying to have more deep conversations about things and thought processes that will allow us to take the proper action steps that are necessary in order for us to have the outcome, the tangible outcome of the economics, the relationships, romantic and platonic relationships that we're looking for, to be a success for whatever you deem the success is for you to be, but still achieving that if you feel like at this present moment it's not tangibly where you want it to be or manifesting itself in the present moment like you want it to, right? But having the belief that, again, the faith in doing the right things, it will come about, right? And by doing that and having these type of conversations, this is how we stay on the path of making sure that we bring about what it is that we're looking for and not the things that we are fearful of or afraid of or don't desire. Okay. All right. But taking the path of least resistance, think about it, really break it down, see where you are in your journey. Are you taking the path of least resistance? If you're not, get back into the principles. If you don't know where to go, come talk to me. I got you covered. All right. All right, y'all. Live well, live well. I'll talk to you again soon, my friends.